Sometimes when I start working with people, I ask them which speakers inspire them the most. And most people can't tell me. And that's an actual tragedy, because if you don't know what good looks like, how do you know if you're any good? If you don't know what influential looks like, how do you know how far you are on the scale to achieving influence? And if you don't know what wildly compelling knows, how on earth are you ever going to create your own pathway there? This episode is a frank conversation about what is missing for most emerging and aspiring speakers. And actually, I'm going to call it. It's actually for every single speaker who behind closed doors find themselves admitting that they are not doing as well as they should be, as well as the market thinks they are, and as well as their peers think they are. We're going to have it because every single person who comes to work with me because they're not getting what they want has the same fundamental challenge. In various shades and colors and stories and formats, the way that this shows up is as uniquely different as we are. But at the core, everyone actually has the same challenge. And chances are, if you're not getting what you want out of the speaking-driven world, then this is also you. There is a very simple, sometimes feels brutal truth about why you're not getting what you want. And it's this: you are not visible and you are not compelling. And like everything in this world, there is a continuum from one point to the other. In this case, it's a continuum from invisible to visible to compelling. Just recently, and you're going to hear from two of these people in upcoming episodes, but just recently I had reason to reach out and try to find somebody who was distinctly different, really stood out, and who was actually making most of their money, at least 80% was my request, of their money through emceeing. I did a couple of shout outs in some very strong networks that I'm a part of. And there were, as you would expect, literally dozens of people tagged. You need to speak to this person. You need to speak to that person. You need to speak to this person. And I landed on the profile and the digital footprint for Quinn Conyers, who is this formidable MC out of the US. And she's on one of our upcoming podcasts. When I landed on her website, her digital footprint, there was absolutely no doubt in my mind that she was the person I was looking for. She was what I've come to call in the last couple of weeks while thinking about this and deconstructing this, wildly compelling. Literally, once I landed on her footprint, I didn't need to go anywhere else. I understood immediately what she did. I understood immediately her passion and her position. I understood immediately what made her uniquely different. And I understood immediately that if I was an event organizer and I landed on her digital footprint, I could see straight away why she was becoming so in demand. In actual point of fact, she's going to talk about in an upcoming episode. She's going to talk about exactly some of the really big MC stages she's been able to pull off relatively quickly. But she is wildly compelling. She is uniquely identifiable. She is energetic, but there is so much about her. And almost everybody else that was tagged, some I could see that they were an MC. But most of them, I couldn't even tell from their profile or their website that they were an MC. So the very fact that they were being recommended to me as a brilliant MC and that it didn't show up in their digital footprint anywhere actually erodes their ability to be wildly compelling. And this is what we want to create demand. Another upcoming podcast episode conversation is going to be with Dr. Nikki Sweeney. And there's a very specific reason why I'm interviewing her, and it's not to do with her topic, which will surprise you once you get to know her. But I was looking for an AI speaker for our upcoming conference, the Business of Speaking Conference, to be held in June 2025. And I'd had a lot of people talk to me and tell me that I needed to hire Dr. Nikki. But when looking at her digital footprint, I couldn't actually find the things that as an organizer you need to tick the boxes. There's no speaker reel. There is no speaker one sheet. And I was a little bit disappointed and disillusioned. I actually pushed her team to try and get more video of her in action on stage. But I did decide to do one thing that made the difference. I did decide to follow her on socials, particularly on LinkedIn, which is where she really hangs out. And her content, her positioning, her rate of engagements that she was actually speaking at, her heart and her ethics and her drive around her topic within AI captured my attention. So, whilst her digital footprint is catching up to her speaking status and it is relatively new, whilst it is all catching up, when I did land on that part of her content that was active and dynamic, as in her socials and particularly her LinkedIn profile, she became very quickly wildly compelling. And I found that it was only a matter of days before I was actually reaching out to a team and saying, I know I'm waiting on all this stuff and I know I want more from you, but actually, let's go. I believe Dr. Nikki is a fit. And she is. She is the perfect fit for exactly what we need. Now, with Quinn, I landed on her website and then went to her LinkedIn profile. But her website was enough to tell me that she was exactly what I needed and she was wildly compelling. I then went and followed her on her socials and had it reinforced. With Dr. Nikki, her website for me was powerful but disappointing from a social testimonial proof perspective when I'm hiring a speaker at a very substantial fee. But the minute I went to her content, her LinkedIn dynamic active content, she instantly became wildly compelling because of the way that she shows up. Now, here's the interesting thing. We have to be wildly compelling for our audiences and also for our buyers, our organisers. And most emerging and aspiring speakers are not hitting the scale on either side of that continuum. That continuum actually moves between the audience and the bookers, and the tension that you are going to have to hold for the rest of your speaking driven career is the tension that exists between those two ends of that continuum. You must constantly walk the line between your audiences and the bookers, and you are going to have to learn how to become wildly compelling and irresistible to both. So you have to be able to scale both. Now, can you learn to do this both at the same time? Yeah, you can. But if the thought of that overwhelms you, let me break it down for you. Now, if you're listening along, what I'd love you to do is to actually grab a piece of paper and I want you to draw a triangle on it in the middle. And then I want you to draw a massive circle around the outside. Amazing. Now, what I'd love you to do, and if you're actually driving, just visualize this in your mind or on a run or something like that. Through the center of that triangle, from the top axis through the halfway point on the bottom axis, I want you to draw a straight line. So I want you to divide it in two. Then what I want you to do is around the outside of the circle, I want you to write the market, because you exist in a marketplace. No matter who you think you are, you exist in a marketplace. And then the left-hand axis of the triangle, the left-hand side, I want you to write audience. And then on the right-hand side of that triangle, I want you to write organisers, because these are the two that you actually have to hold that tension between. Now, what we're going to do first of all is we're going to do the audience ladder. So on the left-hand side of the triangle that you've split in half, I want you to do 7 rows. So you've got 7 rows to write in on that triangle. Now, if you need to go and get a bigger piece of paper, please do that. Or if you're thinking, oh my goodness, just scribble it out and do it all over and do it again later. But we're going to start from the bottom of the ladder for the audience engagement. And this is how we get you to be wildly compelling to the audience and irresistible to the organisers. So let's start. The first or the bottom level on the audience engagement ladder on the left-hand side of your triangle is invisible. You are unseen and unheard, and your passion doesn't matter a damn because no one is noticing you or your message. Well, other than your mother, your cat, your best friends, and maybe your children under protest. So that's level 1, and you're invisible. The next level up, number 2, is that you're overlooked. So you do have some presence and people know you speak and how you speak, but your message doesn't stick long enough for people to think to reach out or book you when they have that need. So that's number 2, and that's overlooked. And this is usually where there's some frustration really trying to kick in. The third level above that is visible. So people see you. They may even know your name and your topic, but your message doesn't move enough people to secure consistent work. You speak about the content rather than about the audience and the problems you solve. And you may not even realize yet that you're doing that. Then on top of visible, we have level number 4, or rung number 4 on that ladder. And that is that you are interesting. So write the word interesting. And in this category, people will be acknowledging you and your message. They may even applaud it, but they don't stay involved after you speak once you have left the room. You are speaking on a topic and you have a lane, but you are yet to articulate the very real problem that you solve that will shift you from being a nice to have to a must have. At this point, you are interesting, but you're still a nice to have. So if we take the next rung in that ladder, number 5 is engaging. So at this level, you are capturing attention, you spark curiosity, you prompt interest, people lean in and they want to know more about you and your message. You actually now have a very clear problem you solve that people will pay you for. And your audience is starting to recommend you. It's starting to feel a little less daunting to build something sustainable. So if we take the next step up on that rung, on that ladder, number 6 is influential. And at this level, you are getting attention and you hold it. You actually have the demonstrated ability to shift beliefs and perspectives, and you leave an indelible mark on your audience at a really deep level. People spontaneously share and accredit your content on socials after hearing you. They repeat your phrases back to you, even if it's years before you see them again. You are creating raving fans, and it's starting to feel like this could be at scale. You are in demand. And then the top, number 7, is compelling. Now write the word compelling, but beside it, I want you to write wildly compelling. I want you to amplify this. I want you to really feel into it. When you are wildly compelling, your presence and your message powerfully moves people to decisive action and lasting change. You are changing the status quo. You are imprinted on hearts and minds. You are the headline act. You are a draw card. You are becoming or are a category of one. And that is what makes you wildly compelling. Now, what I'd love you to do as you fill this in and think about it, you might have to come back to this later. What I'd love you to do is go back and think about the people that you've already been exposed to or heard in your career who sit alongside those 2 top categories. That is number 6, they are influential. Or number 7, they are absolutely wildly compelling. I can tell you right now, I can very quickly tell you the names of the people that sit in those top 2. And it's important that you have that as well. Sometimes when I start working with people, I ask them which speakers inspire them the most. And most people can't tell me. And that's an actual tragedy, because if you don't know what good looks like, how do you know if you're any good? If you don't know what influential looks like, how do you know how far you are on the scale to achieving influence? And if you don't know what wildly compelling knows, how on earth are you ever going to create your own pathway there? So take some time, breathe a little, and discover who you think sit in those categories from your perspective. But what matters with this ladder, from 1, invisible, right through to number 7, wildly compelling, what matters is no matter where you feel like you sit now, where you land, where you're sitting, where your feet are stuck, you can shift it and you can step it up. But at the same time, you have to understand the organization's ladder as well. It's no good becoming wildly compelling, or actually you can't become wildly compelling without both sides together. But it's no good embarking on this journey of audience engagement if you're not also understanding what you need to do for the bookers, for the organisers, for the people who actually write the checks and pay you. So the organisers ladder within the triangle is on the right-hand side. So I'd love you to shift over to this right-hand side now. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to work from the bottom up. We're going to work from the lowest level to the highest level. I'm going to walk you through some of the things you need to be aware of, and then we'll deconstruct it a little bit for you. So the first level on the right-hand side on the organisers continuum, the organisers ladder, is that you are ignored, literally. People scroll past you without stopping, whether it's on digital media or in real life. And if an organiser is in the room, you don't even know. Or you may know, but they don't bother to make themselves known. That's a hard one. The second level above ignored is noticed. So when you're noticed, you will appear briefly on the radar, but there's no need for people to linger. It reminds me of, I have a background, my first career was in executive recruitment. And people talk about you have a certain amount of time to make a first impression. A lot of people talk about 30 seconds when it comes to recruitment. And it's true. As much as I used to try and dispute it and argue it, especially once you knew your game and you knew your market and you knew your clients, it was really true. You had to get my attention in the first 30 seconds. Well, for many of you who are aspiring to take great conference stages, whether it is to build a business or to become a professional speaker, for many of you it's the same. You are up against other people, and there may be 30 seconds for you to be able to make your impression and be the chosen one. So you need to be able to understand what you need to do, right? Because whether it's recruitment, whether it's sales, whether it's the organizer's desk, you have 30 seconds. So you appear briefly and then you disappear. It's kind of like a shooting star, right? Now let's go to level number 3 above noticed. That's adequate. And adequate, you are competent. You are actually quite good at what you do, but you're not yet good enough to stand out top of mind in a crowded field. You are still in the noise, and there is nothing wrong with being here. So many of you right now are in the noise, but if you're in the noise, you're not being ignored and you're possibly on your way. This is where you do the reps, you do the repeats. This is where you actually build the muscle. So if you're competent, please take a moment and congratulate yourself, knowing that there is more to achieve. Then once you have pushed through the level of adequate, number 4 is you become intriguing. So you do actually spark some interest. There isn't full conviction and buy-in yet from the organisers and the planners, but this is where momentum will start. And this is where really sustainable speaking businesses are born. People start referring you when you aren't in the room, and that starts kicking in from now. This level of being intriguing means that you're getting more stages, you're winning more stages than you're losing, and it's starting to happen. From there, though, we take you to level number 5, which is professional. And in professional, it's exactly what it means. You are a professional. Your credentials and track record, they're clearly established. You've got more inbound than outbound inquiries. The market actually recognizes you as a safe bet, and there is nothing wrong with that. You are a safe pair of hands. You know what to do with an audience, and the organisers can trust you with their people and with their audiences. And this is so important. You do know your lane, you know your value, and so does the market. This is not a bad place to be. If you want to continue up from there, though, level 6, we move from professional to impressive. And in impressive, you inspire confidence and create excitement from the very first point of contact. And that point of contact usually doesn't include you. It's like me stumbling on Quinn's digital footprint when I was looking for the MC. You are always a serious consideration at this level, even if you don't win every single gig, although there's going to be fewer and fewer that you are losing at this level because you're impressive and you get attention, and there's reasons why we should book you. And then when we get to the top, the flip side of being wildly compelling for your audience is actually being irresistible to organisers. You are the immediate and obvious choice. Organisers stop looking for you. David Averin, who's our previous guest on this podcast series, talks about one of the reasons why he actually gets so much work is because he's very quick to respond. His team are very quick to pitch. And once you land on his digital footprint, you understand immediately if he is the right fit for you. He is irresistible in his lane. And this is a really important place for you to get to. This is where your work will become easy and fun. And if a global international career is on your horizons, this is where it will be absolutely firmly taking hold. There is a word of warning around the organizer's ladder, the right-hand side of your triangle. You cannot push past intriguing, maybe can't even push through adequate if you don't have one thing in place. You must be easy to work with. It doesn't matter how good you are on a stage if you are a pain in the ass off it. If the AV teams find you exhausting, if the tech teams find you exhausting, if you have a writer that is pages long, if you don't meet what the organizers need in the pre-run, if you don't do what the sponsors need, if you're just not easy to work with, if your slide decks aren't in the format requested, there's so many things. So if you are a pain in the ass to work with, you may get stuck in adequate, and intriguing may be the only flash of brilliance that you get to. So those levels again for you in summary, if we go up the right-hand side with the organizer's ladder, is 1, you're ignored. 2, you are noticed. 3, you're adequate. 4, you become intriguing. 5, you're professional. 6, you're impressive. And 7, you're irresistible. Now, there are some critical shifts to make, whoever you are. If you're feeling like this is hitting home a little too pointedly, then let me invite you to consider some shifts that can be made. Because emerging speakers and speakers wanting to break through the next level often remain invisible or barely noticed because they fail to articulate what is their unique value, and to do that in the terms that matter most to event organizers. The instant clarity that I experienced with Quinn Conyers and Dr. Nikki Sweeney occurs because these speakers have mastered the shifts I'm going to talk about. They have spoken directly to the deepest needs of their audience. They've divined exactly the problem that they solve in language that resonates and we understand immediately. There's no clever copywriting here. They position themselves powerfully and very specifically. And both of them grabbed my attention instantly, compelling me to say, I don't need to look anywhere else. So let's unpack just 7 of the shifts that we use with our clients because I haven't got time to give you all of them. So the first one is I want you to stop speaking mostly about who you are, your background and your achievements, and start articulating clearly and immediately the urgent problem that you solve. And this matters because your organizers, the people who pay you and go to contract with you, they aren't interested in your story until they're certain that you can solve their problem. And their problem is not, I'm great at events, I turn up on time. That's not the problem. What is the problem you're solving for their audience? Okay. Now, the second one I want you to do is I want you to stop offering vague or overly general descriptions of the outcomes you deliver and start clearly pinpointing the exact and pressing problem that organizers desperately want solved. Now, clarity about the problem you solve creates instant recognition, interest, and a degree of urgency that you can't buy. One of the people that we're working with at the moment, we've actually repositioned her from just being, or not just being, but being a burnout and resilience speaker, which is a very noisy marketplace. Resilience is overcrowded. Burnout is definitely becoming overcrowded. And yet this client has this incredibly unique perspective. And so we've actually repositioned it totally and are about to relaunch it. And already I've reached out to people who know her to battle test the shifts that we're making and like, oh, I now know what she speaks on. I now know why I would book her. So it's so important. Stop being vague and stop giving generalist descriptions and get really specific about a very pressing problem that you solve right now. The third thing that I want you to stop and start is to stop positioning yourself as a jack of all trade or generalist. And this ties in so tightly to the one before. And I want you to start developing a powerful, specific positioning statement defining precisely who you're for and why you're uniquely qualified. Specificity is a magnet. It attracts ideal clients and clearly differentiates you in really crowded markets. And recently, we did an intensive strategy positioning exercise with a new client. This client, her name is Julie. She has global experience. It's impressive. It's literally out of control, the depth and the richness of her experience and her expertise. And because of that, because it is a deep career with deep experience, both professionally and lived across the globe, the amount of lenses and the amount of stories that she could speak into are literally endless. But to do that in the marketplace would mean she will never get hired. She will never get out of those bottom 2 rungs of the audience or the organizers' ladders. What we've done is we've actually created a positioning statement that perfectly articulates the value she brings to the world that is worthy to be paid for. And that's what you need to do. So that's the third one. Number 4, stop creating websites, profiles, and pitches that blend in with industry norms. And I know everybody believes they are uniquely different. But if you go and look at 5 or 6 of your competitors and you sound relatively the same, then you are part of the noise. So what can you do instead? Well, stop creating things that blend in and start creating bold statements of claims or knockout questions that immediately stop the scroll and demand attention. It really, really matters. Instant impact transforms initial curiosity into conviction. If you can stop that scroll for a split second, chances are people are going to go further into finding out more about you. I've just been working with a private client at the moment, and she's really well established in her sector, but she wants to bounce out of it. She wants to actually do that crossover into other verticals and other industries. But she can't do that with her current positioning because whilst it's worked where she is known, to break out of where she is known, or as I say, to break out of her own lunchbox, she can't be positioned in the noise. So she is a wellness educator in a very specific niche who has a very loyal following and a great business. But that won't cut it. Being a wellness educator, that won't cut it in the general market. So through a process of elimination, we've actually come out with a very bold statement of claim, incredibly bold. And under it fits every element and facet of her work and who she is and the experience she brings. So challenge yourself. Go and craft a bold statement of claim. Go and look at the top 20 TED Talks in the world. Almost every single one of them have a bold statement of claim. And some of the great TEDx talks do as well. I'm thinking about my friend Jamin, and his bold statement of claim, which is his TEDx title, is insecurity is a solvable problem. That's bold. And he backs it up every step of the way. So the other thing that I love about a bold statement of claim, it gets you hyper-focused on standing out. It gets you hyper-focused on what's uniquely different about you, because we actually need to stand out through your lens. There is not a single new idea or approach in the world. The only thing that is new is you, your unique value, your unique perspective. So that's number 4. Number 5, I want you to stop hoping that credentials, skills, and experience alone will secure bookings. If that was the case, we'd all be wildly wealthy and my job wouldn't need to exist. What I want you to start doing instead is explicitly connect your skills and experience directly to the organizer's deepest desires and the audience's greatest problems. Bookers and organisers will choose speakers who clearly get them and not just those who impress them. In fact, when you actually nail the problem right, when you actually are able to articulate the challenge and connect your skills and experience to why you're the best bet for solving that problem, 9 times out of 10, they won't even look at your credibility stuff. Let that sink in for a moment. 9 times out of 10, if you are speaking their language, solving the problems they need solved, and you're linking your skills and experiences directly to those two things, they will go and look at your credibility after they have already made an emotional decision to buy you to justify and bring logic to that decision. Let that land. This is so important. The next thing I want you to do, number 6, is stop describing your content rather than the transformation you create for the audience. So many people are describing their content and their experience and their topic instead of what it creates in their audience. Now, if you want an easy starting point for this, and it's not necessarily speaker related, but if you're not already familiar with the work of Donald Miller and StoryBrand 2.0, don't worry about his AI, just get the books. If you're not already familiar with what we can do here, go and get them, because that is a really good grounding and foundational skills and knowledge in understanding how to see things from the audience perspective. It is priceless. So I want you to stop describing your content and start describing precisely how an audience will think, feel, and act differently after experiencing you. Event organizers actually buy transformation more than they buy topics, academic and medical conferences aside. Then, number 7, the last one that I'm going to share with you today, is I want you to stop focus on securing individual bookings instead of building lasting reputation and relationships. I want you to start committing obsessively to the organizer's success, over delivering value before, during, and after every engagement. I want you to become somebody that they see as an extension of their team, even if they only book you once every 1 or 2 years. This is also the antidote to what I was talking about not being a pain in the ass, right? Build relationships wherever you go. You don't know where they will land, and you don't know where they will come back and repay you tenfold. Okay, it's really, really important. And also look at different ways that you can do it, right? What I want you to understand is that the greatest speakers and the most successful speakers, the ones who have longevity, they don't just speak. They build lasting trust, they create repeat bookings and continuous referrals. I remember working alongside one of my very first mentors, and some of his clients, after 27 years in the business, had booked him for 25 of those 27 years. Relationships matter. The other thing that's really quirky is actually what we're going to discuss in the upcoming podcast episode with Quinn Conyers. She has landed on this genius model for being an MC to actually bring consistent, sustainable revenue in. And I can't wait to share that with you in the upcoming podcast. But here's the thing. If you're starting from zero, attention isn't given, it's earned, and sometimes it feels really hard. So what is it that you need to do if that's where you're at and you feel like you can't even crack the baseline of attention? Well, the first thing is pick one problem. Stop trying to be an expert to everyone and stop trying to solve all the things. Even if you can do all the things, pick one problem. Become known for solving one pressing, specific, and relevant problem that people will pay for. Clarity and specificity will cut through the noise. If you want to stay generalist, that's fine, but you'll continue to stay unnoticed. If you want to magnetize attention and end up going up that complete audience ladder to wildly compelling, well, then know this: specialists magnetize attention. The second thing is I would advise you to obsessively understand your audience. Know exactly who they are, their fears, their frustrations, their dreams and desires better than they do. And this is because audience will pay attention when they feel deeply seen and understood. You don't have to tell them you understand them. If they can feel in your words and your stories and your insights that you get their world. That is the most powerful place to get. The next bit is that number 3 is lead with provocation, not politeness. So when I said about bold statement of claim earlier, that's the start of this. You need to actually be provocative, maybe evocative. It's not about agitating, but it's about actually just being a little bit provocative, just getting people to think a little. Because if you can stop people in their scroll and get them to think for a second, you've actually captured some attention. But politeness will never do that. So stop the scroll with a bold statement or a provocative question. Say something bold enough that people instantly react, whether it's positive or negative, and that's another whole big conversation. Safe and polite will not get you attention. You must dare to disrupt and risk discomfort to be heard, especially if you are one of the people who are going to tell me that they're here to make an impact. You need to get bold, babe. The next thing, number 4, is give yourself permission to be seen. This is the biggest thing. Consistently show up on video, podcast, social media, live events, networking groups, anywhere relevant to your audience. And the more in person, the better, right? We spend so much time in our digital sphere that sometimes we forget, actually, if we just showed up a little bit more in the real world, things would accelerate even faster. But this is what I want you to take away from this particular point. Visibility is a habit. If you hide, you lose. Your voice cannot change the world if it's locked in silence. And this has been one of my greatest personal lessons over the last period of time, probably the last decade, right? You cannot be invisible. In a previous life, when I was a co-director and co-founder of a real estate agency, the head of the sales team used to always say, his mantra was always, can't sell a secret. You can't sell a secret. And that has stayed with me. You can't sell a secret, guys. And too many of you are behaving like you are the world's best kept secret. Then number 5 is, if you can't find the stage, just stop waiting and create your own. Launch a podcast, host a webinar, post consistently online, run your own events, do a workshop, go regional, run town halls, speak at schools, speak at colleges, go anywhere. Start conversations, become the host, the authority, become the convener, the curator, the organizer. And why is this? Stage time isn't offered freely. If you're not being invited, then start creating them, and eventually you will be invited. I cannot believe the amount of people missing out on opportunity because they are simply waiting for the big stage to ask them or to win that big stage for their next step of their career. If you're not getting what you want, start creating it, and on the way it'll accelerate you right through to irresistible. The next thing is, number 6, is build proof quickly, even if you start small. Get testimonials, case studies, measurable results, even from small, unpaid or casual engagements. And why is this? Because proof builds credibility. Our own business here has taken off since we've been able to have testimonials, case studies, since we've been seen very visibly in the real world. And it's no different for any of you. Credibility opens bigger and bigger doors, but people want evidence first that you are worth their attention. So give it to them. Don't hold back. It's not bragging. It's actually giving people confidence and a surety that they should engage with you. And then, number 7, is shift immediately from about me to about you. And this is the one I want to leave you with. Shift immediately from about me to about you. Remove yourself from the center. Get out of the middle. Clearly articulate things and outcomes and problems for your audience, how they will transform from experiencing the insights and the wisdom you will bring. Story and content is not enough. You must be able to share wisdoms and insights and shift perspectives and change parameters and change paradigms. No one cares about your story until it directly intersects with theirs. And when you use story to solve the problem that they already have, they will lean in every single time. But they won't even get the opportunity to lean in if it's still all about you. So make that shift from about me to about you right now. Because here's the thing. Attention isn't random luck. It's strategic, it's intentional, and it's replicable. Quite honestly, you need to stop waiting. Start where you are. Be bold. Keep showing up. And they'll start asking, where have you been hiding all this time?